Rita Brand and I, along with Risa Ramsey, who is providing support for nursing continuing education, have no real or apparent financial disclosures. So today's session is role and responsibilities of the IRB, sponsors, CRO, principal investigators, and key study personnel by Dorita Brand, MSN, RN, CCRP. Dorita has been a registered nurse since 1986 and began her research career in 1990 as a nurse coordinator in the GYN department here at UTHSC. She has been in regulatory compliance and training positions for the last 10 years, assisting researchers in ensuring their adherence to regulations and guidance. She has vast experience in different job positions in research for over the last 30 years and has been a certified CCRP through ACRP for the last 24 years. Currently, she is Program Director at the Tennessee Clinical and Translational Science Institute at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center here in Memphis, and she is a wealth of information. And so, Dorita, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Margaret. As Margaret said, this is session 5 of the Research 101 series, and she also has already let you know that I have no financial or other conflicts of interest to disclose when given this presentation. Today, I'll be presenting information on the roles and responsibilities of the research study team and the investigator when we are conducting research. I know a lot of you are probably familiar with a lot of these abbreviations, but in the past sessions, some people had asked us to identify the meanings of some of the abbreviations that we sort of just throw out there. So I'd like to take just a moment to briefly go over some of these. AE is adverse events that we assess for these, and there will be session 9 will discuss event reporting in more detail. ALCOA C stands for attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate, and complete. And we use these guidelines when we document in our research records and entries. We always should apply ALCOA C. CFR is the Code of Federal Regulations. This is a reference to the FDA regs we must follow for some of our studies that fall under the FDA purview. The DOAL is a delegation of authority log. It's the document needed to identify those tasks that are delegated by the principal investigator to other members of the study team. The ICH-GCP E6 R2 that we just had a session on is a set of guidelines that we discussed that most of our studies require that we follow those. IE stands for inclusion and exclusion. It's a set of criteria listed in the protocol or your study procedures that ensure that we enroll the correct subjects. IP is investigational product. This could be a drug, biologic, or a device, and session 10 will be held regarding this subject. IRB or IEC is our ethics review committee. And without their approval or at least their acknowledgement, we shouldn't be conducting research. OHRP is a governing body that consists of guidances to follow. PI, we all know that, is our principal investigator. And SAE is serious adverse events. Again, this will be discussed more in session 9 when we talk about event reporting. All right, so let's take a moment and look at some of the regulations and guidance that we should follow when conducting research. The Code of Federal Regulations, the 45 CFR 46, which is also a lot of times known as the Common Rule, our ICH GCPs that we've discussed in detail. FDA has a lot of information sheets out on the web on topics like how to, if your study needs a 1572, it has an information sheet on investigator responsibilities that I highly recommend you read after this session. There's OHRP guidances, All of us are probably familiar with the Belmont Report, the Nuremberg Code, the Declaration of Helsinki. We had to read all those when we took the city human subject protection training. The SOPs of the IRB or your IEC, we need to be familiar with those. The protocol, if your study requires, or the procedures outlined for your study. Any institutional or departmental policies or procedures you must adhere to, and of course, Alcoa C that we previously identified. Do you sometimes feel like the cartoon with all the regulations and guidances that we have to follow? Well, that we're being watched? Well, we really are. We want to make sure we abide by all the rules so that we ensure subject safety and data integrity when conducting research. So I'll give you a minute just to look at the cartoon. It's like you have your IRB, you have the FDA, if your study falls under that purview, you have OHRP, you have people that are monitoring your research study. So who can be a member of the study team? We all want to have a team that performs like the puppies in this picture. Even though we're individuals, we want to perform as one team. That way we will ensure we will be the most successful. So the study team may consist of all or some of the following, depending on your study. We have the PI, other investigators that are identified, coordinators, data managers or specialists, our statistics team, regulatory personnel, others that may assist us when conducting our study. Those are different people that could be a member of the team. Not all studies have all of those people on their team. So everything is individualized per the particular study that you are conducting. So what does it take to be a research study team, a member of the research study team? A team member must possess the qualifications to perform the tasks that are delegated by the PI. You have to be qualified by either education, experience, or knowledge. You also have to have the appropriate training for the particular study. So just because you had training for a procedure on another study, you have to document that you have training for your particular study that you're performing at that particular time. You must adhere to the protocol or procedures that are outlined for the research, and you must follow the regulations and guidances that we discussed a couple of slides ago. So unlike our meme here, we have our requirements already identified for us, and there are a lot of requirements. The regulations and guidance identify commitments for the investigator. Therefore, most of the study team commitments and responsibilities fall under the investigator because like your FDA regs and your ICH GCP E6 guidance does not specifically talk about coordinators, data managers, statistical personnel that are conducting our study. We all fall under the investigator roles and responsibilities. So when an investigator agrees to conduct a study, they should also be able to commit to the following things: have the patient population to recruit sufficiently, have the time to commit to conducting the study and performing his or her duties. They should also possess the appropriate knowledge of the protocol and the procedures, the IP if your study has investigational product, as well as the regulations and guidance, the general ones for conducting any kind of study or any kind of clinical trial. Data integrity is also an important commitment, and following the protocol and study procedures will ensure the data integrity is intact. And finally, the investigator should have adequate resources, such as personnel, space, etc., to properly conduct the study. If we're part of the study team, we all have responsibilities. And according to our role in the study, that dictates the responsibilities that we have for each particular study. There are responsibilities for everyone, and some members will have more than others. So some of us might have like the Toy Story cartoon or meme that responsibilities are everywhere, because some of us might take on a lot more responsibilities for certain studies than others have. But ultimately, the study responsibilities fall to the principal investigator. Even when he or she delegates tasks, that's why PI oversight is essential for delegated tasks. Our documentation, the PI's documentation has to show oversight even when they delegate tasks to study team members. We spoke about the qualifications, about someone, whoever performs a task has to be qualified by education, experience, or education to perform that particular task. Also, adherence to the regulations, guidance, policies, and procedures. You'll hear me say that probably 1,000 times during this presentation, and I apologize in advance. Also, supervision, that's referring to the PI oversight that we just spoke about. And as always, the protection of subjects is your #1 responsibility for all of us, no matter what our role is in our responsibility is for our study. The previous slides summarize the investigator's responsibilities, but now let's look at some general ones that we have. Conducting research in an ethical manner. Studies should be performed so that they contribute to scientific knowledge while protecting our subjects. And if your study's under FDA purview, following the statements in the back of the 1572 form that I know many of our investigators have completed, or you might have completed as a coordinator or study team member for the investigator. Follow the protocol, supervise the study team. They need to disclose any conflicts of interest, oversight of investigational product if your study has an IP, assessing for any adverse events that may happen, and also following up on those adverse events or side effects to resolution. Again, have the adequate infrastructure or resources to make sure that you can efficiently conduct the study. Delegation of tasks, when they're delegating those tasks, make sure it's appropriate to the person that is receiving that delegation. Maintain essential documents, ensuring that our IEC, IRB approval has been attained as needed, and allowing monitoring and auditing of studies from departmental audits or monitoring, the IRB audits or monitoring, our sponsors, the FDA, whatever regulatory body might need to come in and look at our study documents to show that we're in compliance with the protocol or the procedures of the study. So just as the PI, as you've just seen with all those responsibilities, we as a study team member wear many hats for most of our studies in order to fulfill our task and our responsibilities that have been delegated to us. Along with the many hats comes the many responsibilities. So as Oprah gives out many, many gifts on her show, the role of a study member gifts us with just as many responsibilities. What are some of the roles we assume as a study team member? Well, of course, like we've mentioned, that depends on the role you are undertaking for a particular study. Again, for any delegated task you're assigned, you got to be qualified. We should assume the role of subject advocate. #1, protecting our subjects. Comply with the protocol and procedures. And no matter our role, we probably all will be responsible for maintaining some type of documentation or documents relating to our assigned task. And communication and coordination between study team members are key for a successful study. And someone will also probably take the role of regulatory to help us get everything approved through the IRB and to do all of our reports to the sponsor or the PI or whoever is needed to be reported to. So some additional responsibilities include some of the following, like human subject protection training, ongoing training like you're attending now with our Research 101 series, identifying issues, developing resolutions to those problems that might occur with your study. And some of you may even be involved with contract or budget negotiations. So those are some of the responsibilities that the study team takes on. So I spoke a little bit about communication and coordination between the study team as essential. This RATE principle is from a core of the Veterans Association, and I think it shows the need for members to connect as being essential. So team members need to develop a rapport with each other, and in turn this enables us to be accountable to others on the study team. And with that accountability comes transparency and empowerment. And if we function as an efficient team, then our work is much easier and we will be more successful. And our study will be more successful. So how do we know what our responsibilities and delegated tasks might be for a study that we're conducting? Well, the PI has to delegate to each member the task. And in order for him or her to assign tasks, again, they have to ensure that the person's qualified to perform that particular task. And they have to document that delegated task on the delegation of authority log. And talk about the DOAL form just a little bit. Some of the following things are included in the DOAL, and that's like the study team member, the task that they're delegated, the time frame that they will perform this task, signatures and initials of the team member and the PI, showing that there's agreement that that person will take on the delegated task and that the PI has delegated that task to a qualified member. It's not only the PI, but the study team member's responsibility to make sure that the delegated tasks that are given to them are appropriate. Don't ever perform tasks that you know you're not qualified to perform. So sometimes we do have inappropriate delegation of tasks to the study team. And in audits, some of those have been identified as people or members of the study team performing in inclusion-exclusion criteria assessment, the physical exams, evaluations of the severity or the causality of AEs and SAEs, or obtaining informed consent. So remember a member has to be qualified by education, experience, or knowledge. So an example of informed consent being delegated to an inappropriate study team member would be like an administrative assistant performing the informed consent process for a phase 2 cancer trial. There's no way, or there's probably not any way that that person is qualified. They don't have the knowledge or the training or the experience. So make sure that whoever you're delegating those tasks to are qualified by one of those things. The PI still has to, even if they delegate tasks, the PI still has to maintain oversight and cannot delegate their responsibilities away. So I can't emphasize enough following regulations, guidances, and making sure that everyone has their own delegated task, and not one person probably can't do everything on the study. Or if it is a simple study and you are performing a lot of tasks, remember your PI still has oversight of that. So I want to talk a little bit about protocol procedures and following the protocol and compliance. But we all know that we're human and errors happen. And if deviations occur, which they probably will, you just need to correct the event, document what happened, and come up with a resolution and develop a corrective and preventative action to avoid reoccurrence. So that might be retraining. It could be on some protocols. Maybe the protocol needs to be changed because that procedure just can't be conducted as it's written in the protocol. So look at how to correct those events and make sure that you don't have the reoccurrence. If the deviation is needed to eliminate an increased risk to the subject, you need to report it as soon as possible to your PI. And also, depending on your study, it might be applicable for your study to report that particular deviation depending on the severity to the IRB, the sponsor, or any other regulatory authority. Not, like we said, non-compliance is going to occur. What you don't want it to do is involve patient safety and data integrity. So according to audits and monitoring visits, some of the most common occurrences of non-compliance are the following: insufficient documentation of PI oversight. So that could be some simple things like the PI signing your site source docs, or the PI making sure that they sign your informed consent if that's required by your IRB, or signing your informed consent process documentation form, or signing lab results in a timely manner. Those kind of things show that the PI is aware of what's going on with your study. And of course, like I said, that depends on the type of study that you're conducting. Other audit findings of non-compliance or not following the protocol or study procedures: lack of source documentation for all your documents, not following the ALCOA C, issues with inadequate investigational product or accountability, and not reporting issues appropriately and in a timely manner when applicable. Not all non-compliance is going to be reported to your IRB or your IEC, but it all needs to be documented, and your PI needs to be aware of all those things. So what are some consequences of non-compliance? Well, some of them can be detrimental to your study. I mean, you might not be able to use data in your study, therefore your study might have been conducted for nothing because you can't use that data. You can't report on it, you can't, publish on it, those kind of things like that. So it depends on the severity of the nature of the non-compliance. It could affect your professional reputation for you, your investigator, your institution, depending on how bad the non-compliance is. And the most serious is if it affects patient safety. We don't want to do anything as far as non-compliance, like not performing study procedures that are safety measures or safety labs, things like that for our subject, because that can increase their risk, and we don't want to do anything that might jeopardize the safety of the subject that's participating in our studies. So I've discussed what roles we may assume, what tasks we may have delegated by the PI, and now let's talk a little bit about characteristics and traits that we might need to possess to conduct research, because I think we're a very special group, and I think we do an amazing job, and I want to just point out some of the characteristics that we need to be able to do this job or to conduct research. So I know many of you have seen this cartoon before. It's been around for a long time. And it doesn't just apply to a coordinator, but it applies to a study team members as a whole. So I'm going to give you a few seconds for those of you that haven't seen this before, and look at all the function that this doll representing us performs. Does that sound familiar to a lot of you? Probably so. I've been there. I know. All right. So as a researcher, we have to possess a lot of characteristics and traits in order for us to be successful. And the first one that we've nailed is subject protector and having an ethical and caring personality. And number two, we have to be multitaskers, because as the coordinator doll or the study team doll just showed us, we have to juggle a lot of things at one time. We also need to be independent, possess good customer service skills, because our subjects are our customers. Have to be a leader, have to be knowledgeable about our studies, have good organization, communication, documentation skills. We also must be a team player to accomplish the most for ourselves, our team, and our study. And finally, on this slide, we have to be excellent time management skills. So look at the juggling act we have to accomplish at any moment of the day, every day, which we all have many tasks at one time. So you just thought we were amazing, possessing all those characteristic traits on the previous slide, but wait, there are more great qualities that we must possess in order to be great researchers. And I'm not going to read all of these to you, but just take notice on a few of those. Trustworthy, an active listener, that's very important. Whether we're listening to our subjects, we're listening to other team members, our PI, whoever the case may be. We have to be flexible. We have to serve as a resource for others. We need to be creative when issues crop up. And we have to be patient, and we have to have, of course, a can-do attitude. So this is from an ACRP article that I think sums up our characteristics and traits very well. Research is being the following. R stands for responsible. E stands for ethical. S stands for subject protector. E is efficient. A is attentive. C is caring. And H is honest. So let's assume we possess the characteristics and traits in the last few slides and not take the attitude of this cat and blame others when we can for issues that occur. We all need to take responsibility for our roles we are delegated. So in summary for our presentation today, I hope you will come away with the following points that we've talked about in this presentation and have a very successful career in research. Protocol compliance is essential. We have to follow regulations, guidances, procedures, and policies. We have to we have to assure that we're qualified to perform the delegated task that the PI assigns us. We have to protect our subjects, and we need to be a team player. These are the best ways that we can assure that we will be successful as a researcher. Are there any questions or anything that anyone has that they would like to ask at this time?
I don't see any questions on the chat right now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. This was a short one, but a lot of good information, hopefully, for you. And,
oh, wait a minute. Rita, I do see a chat.
Okay.
Okay, the question is, how do I contact to get permission to use some of this information? So these will be posted on our website, but be looking for those in July, and we'll send out an announcement.
And you can always reach out to me or Margaret, and we can answer any questions that you might have at a later date. Both of us are UT, so you can find, it's M. Lynn for Margaret and D. Brand, B-R-A-N, at uthsc.edu for me. So please feel free to let us know if anything occurs in the future that you might need some clarification on. We'd be glad to help.